We had this actress on there. I've forgotten her name now. No, I haven't, but I'm not going to tell you. And she complained to the director. She said, I've been over here 4 weeks now and no love. I have no one make love to me. So I said, well, don't look at me, you know. So this was quite a joke, you know, got around, you know. And one day Sid come into my dressing room and he was sort of white, he was shaking. I said, what's the matter with you? God, blimey. He said, I just went round, he said, I knocked on her dressing room door. He said, and she said, just a minute. He said, so I stood outside waiting for 3 or 4 minutes, and when she opened the door, she was stark naked. The director came over to me, he said, excuse me, he said, did I just see you give Sid some money? So I said, yeah, he asked me to lend him a tenner. Oh, he said, you shouldn't do that. I said, well, why not? He said, well, Sid's got a bit of a problem with the gambling. He said, and his missus, you know, gives him so much to spend on his lunch and this, that and the other, only, and he's not allowed to, you know, to bet. So I said, well, I didn't know, and the bloke said, well, I'm sorry, I should have told you, but don't do it again. So I thought, all right, well, I never said anything, you know, and I never saw me tenner again. And about a week later, Sid comes up to me again, and he said, lend us a tenner. So I said, well, what do you want it for? He said, well, is this horse running? I said, oh, not Sid. I said, yeah, I'll lend you a tenner. I said, but I don't know nothing about horses. Oh, this is going to romp home, he said. I said, well, here then, here's a fiver from me. Put that on with your tenner. Thinking, like, if he lost my fiver as well, he wouldn't ask me for any more, so it might shame him into stop him, see? So I give him 15 quid, and never saw no hide nor hair of it, and about 10 days later he come back to me and he said, here's your winnings, and he gave me 125 quid. So I don't know how much he made on it, you know. He's a great bloke.
Victor Spinetti chose the opening of a new wine bar in Brighton to celebrate Sid with champagne and try to explain his magic.
Well, if you walked in here now, everybody's face would break into a smile. The gift he had was when he appeared, everybody smiled. It was because you saw a man that was... What you saw was real. That's what you saw. I mean, that's why people, whenever you went anywhere with him, there was always...
How's that for a cow's udder?
I think you better call the vet.
Now, come on. Have a pull.
No, it's silly, isn't it? I mean, it's only a rubber glove.
Yeah, but it'll help you get the rhythm.
Rhythm? What have I got to do, dance with it?
Look, don't argue, Sidney. You just grab a couple of fingers. Go on, have a pull.
No, I'm not grabbing anything, mate. You do the milking.
We only rehearsed in the mornings, not in the afternoons. We do it all in the morning, but get it all done. Right, this is how we do a bit, and so we do, because in the afternoons we wanted to watch racing. Don't Tell Val. You should call this program Don't Tell Val.
She's mooing again.
I wasn't expecting to do bark. Look, Sid, you remember? Pull, squeeze, pull, squeeze, pull, squeeze, pull, squeeze.
Oh, I've done it! Oh! Well done, girl. There's nothing to it, is there? We did it together. See you in the morning. Right, who's next for milking?
Who's next for milking? We want 2 gallons, not 2 squirts. 2 gallons.
From there?
He used to ring me up and say, we're rehearsing Saturday afternoon. I said, what? Yeah, and we'll come up to your place and sit and just watch the racing. Have a cigar, and the racing paper, and he knew all the form. He knew, I mean, I'm not a gambler, but I felt the excitement of it and the joy of it from him. Man, he was excessive. Val had to sort of curb him. He was given so much pocket money a week to spend on the horses. Otherwise, he'd have spent everything.
Writer Vince Powell and head of Thames TV comedy Philip Jones knew they were on a winner when they signed up Sid on an exclusive contract. Vince had already written for him in George and the Dragon for television.
He was a comedy writer's dream, because if a line wasn't all that brilliant, he'd have that dirty laugh at the end, and everyone would laugh, you see. And he made ordinary lines into brilliant lines. he was wonderful. I mean, and his reactions, his facial expressions, you know, a wink or a leer, and he could get a laugh from an audience.
There we are. That should do it.
All right.
Right, now then, where is it?
Down this side.
Right. How's that?
Bit further down. That's it. Oh. That's lovely. Oh, yeah.
The director had a ban on alcohol in dressing rooms on recording days because he had artists before that got too drunk to perform. So Sid liked a little drop of scotch, so he said, oh, no, I'm in this. So he bought this big bottle of gargle that looked like scotch, emptied it out, filled it with scotch. And for several weeks it remained in his dressing room, and Harry and I used to nip in and say, have a little drink, Sid? Oh, yeah, that's, you know. And one day, after dress, we were in his dressing room, and the director walked in, and he said, oh, I just wanted to do that line, Sid. And he was going on about a line, and he said, you know, I've got a terrible throat, Sid. He said, can I borrow your gargle? And before Sid could say anything, he went, mouthful of scotch.
Thank God she's gone. Have you got it?
Yes, here we are.
Good. Thank you. I needed that. Would you care for a drop?
No, thank you, Colonel. It's a bit too early for whiskey.
Quite right, too.
He'd just finished the 13th episode of George and the Dragon with Peggy Mount, and he complained to me at lunchtime that he had heartburn. I said, okay, I had heartburn, have a drink. So we had our usual toddle, and we left the studios. He came home and had a nightcap with me, and then he left home, because he was only 20 minutes from me, where I lived in Denham, and I was just 20 minutes away. And Val called me at 2:30 to say he'd had a very serious heart attack. And, of course, I went over in my pajamas with some trousers over them, and he was laying completely unconscious. The doctor was there, and the doctor said he has to go to hospital, but now. And it was the most petrifying drive I've ever known. He was at the back of the car in blankets and a pillow, and I kept on listening to hear if he was breathing, because you must understand, forget he was my client. He was my great, great friend.
Want a shot?
Sid, being Sid, didn't let up and carried on working.
Before you go berserk, Sid.
Yes.
They're only squeezers.
Squeezers?
I could cause a riot tonight.
Boy,
Yes, Dad?
take 'em out.
Spoil sport.
I don't think that was very funny.
Your face was.
One of his favourite expressions was he never over-rehearsed because he didn't want to leave the fight in the gym. And the first time I ever did a programme with him, I was really worried. I thought, this is not funny. And I said to him, Sid, this is not working, this episode. He said, why? I said, well, you don't seem to have any energy in it. And he said, well, I don't do that. That's not the way I work. And he said, well, I said, look, let just me see it once. And if I see it once and I'm convinced it will always be like that, then I'll be fine. And he did it once for me on the first ever episode of Bless His House. And in the next 6 years, I never saw the performance until we got into the studio. He knew what he was doing. Every one of those grimaces and those odd looks to one side and those slightly hurt, boyish little whimpers, he knew exactly what they were. He had the whole cast eating out of his hands. He knew what he was up to. He was a clever sod, that's what he was. He was a clever sod.
How'd you get on with Michael?
Oh, he's all right. You don't have to worry about him.
I hadn't even started.
He's taking a bird out tonight.
Good.
Somebody called Jean Fletcher.
Not so good.
Why?
Jean Fletcher's an American.
Oh, that's all right. I'm not prejudiced.
She's a he.
A he? A male he?
Yes. The name's Eugene. He's a ballet dancer.
Oh, my God. A ballet dancer? And I give him a fiver and tell him to have a good time.
I don't think it's any secret that his wife didn't like him gambling. He wasn't a very good winner as far as I could see. He didn't win often enough. And I remember once he was going on holiday and he said to me before he went, I can't get to the bookies to pay my account. It was 80 quid or something. And he gave me 80 quid and said, would you pop into the bookies and pay it for me? And when I went in there, I said to this fella, I've come to settle an account for a friend of mine who's going on holiday and couldn't pay before he went. Here it is. And he said, what's his name? And I said, Sid James. And he said, no, I'm sorry, you got the wrong place. He hasn't got an account here. And I said, look, I'm his producer, his television producer. He said, Sid James doesn't owe us any money. So I said, well, get the manager out. I told the manager the same story. And in the end, I said, I'm going to put the money on the counter and I'm going away. And I did, and I put the money on the... And as I was walking out the door, he said, OK, all right, he said, but don't tell anybody. Sid's not supposed to gamble. I said, I know he's not supposed to gamble.
Tell you what I'll do with you. Tomorrow, I'll come in here and I'll bet the lot on a long...
No more, Sid. It's finished.
Finished?
From now on, there's a limit on you. £5.
What are you talking about? What kind of a sportsman are you?
What's with the sportsman? If I was a sportsman, I'd be riding the horses.
Lots of people protected him. They liked him. You know, he wasn't a weak man. He didn't need protecting as far as I could see. You know, he was perfectly able to look after himself. But some people have that quality. They attract, well, this is a strange thing to say, but they attract niceness in other people. And Sid was a bit like that. You know, you couldn't help but like Sid.
Now, Harriet, I must have a very serious talk with you.
Oh, yes, sir.
I am very shocked to hear from Miss Hoggett that you have been staying out late at night on several occasions. Is this true?
Oh, I cannot tell a lie, sir. I have been a bad girl.
Sid will forever be bracketed with Tony Hancock, but equally memorable are his numerous scenes with Barbara Windsor.
A good fight. Fight against it. Get thee behind me, Satan.
Oh.
In the Carry On films, Sid was endlessly trying to get off with her, and it seems that this was a case of art imitating life. Babs Windsor was reluctant to talk on TV about this, although she describes the affair in some detail in her book, The Tears and Laughter of a Cockney Sparrow. Apparently Sid was enormously persistent, and Babs succumbed, as she says, for the sake of a quiet life. The first time they did it, the earth didn't move, but then Sid got really quite good.
You've got to get on top of it!
Oh.
She was worried about him being so acrobatic, as she knew he'd had a heart attack, but got a phone call from someone purporting to be Sid's doctor, saying he'd be fine if he didn't do it hanging from the chandelier.
Please give it to me.
I wish I had the time.
But she says he got over-possessive, and she thought enough was enough. Sid went back to his family, and the whole thing was a bit of a mess.
Get off the road to ruin and let go, you. Let go the devil in his ways. Stop!
I would say nothing against their romance. I was concerned, and I used to go to the dressing room and say, Sid, this can't go on. The press are going to get hold of it, and that's going to be murder for your image. He said, I don't give a damn. I'm happy. I said, okay, Sid. If that's the way you see it, he said, that's the way I see it, Mick.
Sid toured his stage show, The Mating Season, in South Africa, Australia and New Zealand before starting a British tour. It was here at the Sunderland Empire he made his final appearance in front of a first-night audience. By a strange coincidence, it was his old friend Olga from his South African days who was on stage with him. Mel James, then stage manager, still works at the theatre.
I gave him the cue. He answered me a few times, didn't he? That's right.
Well, I didn't actually hear
that.
You
You weren't here.
No, I was in my office, which was in the corner.
That's right, of course, we had all that trouble later, that's right. Anyway, I came down here, and I was sitting on the sofa. I gave him his cues. He answered me. The audience was laughing. It was perfectly all right. And then I gave him another cue, and nothing. So I looked around, and his head had gone right back onto the sofa. His eyes were sort of up. And I told you afterwards, I thought it was a gag, didn't I?
Yep.
I really honestly thought it was a gag. So I started ad-libbing and saying, oh, Sid, I've come all this way to see you, and this is the way you treat me. And then looked back and thought he would continue with the show, but still nothing. So then I thought there was something terribly wrong.
I dived up onto stage, up the ladder in the corner, dropped the house tabs, down the ladder.
And then you went through the curtains.
I looked at
here.
Sid first of all.
Yes.
Then I went through the curtain and done the horrible thing. Is there a doctor in the house?
And they laughed again, didn't they?
Laughed at me.
When you said they thought there was another
So
guy.
again, I repeated it, and thank goodness there was a doctor
In the house,
in the
that's
house.
right.
And he
And he
came
came
into
back.
the corner, and he asked me then, was it a gag? And by that time, actually,
Yeah.
the ambulance crew were here.
And he died in the ambulance,
He
didn't he?
died in the ambulance.
Apart from being a brilliant comic actor, Sid James was a womanizer and a gambler. His friends knew this, but his charm overcame them, and all of them have fond memories of him. He rarely did interviews and was not prone to self-analysis. But after his death, Valerie found a cassette.
Face the final curtain, my friend. I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain.
It's not the most original choice of lyric for an epitaph, but it is delivered with all the panache with which Sid James led his life.
Regrets? I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew, but through it all, when there was doubts, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me, I did it my way.
Without Walls takes a break for 6 weeks. Taking its place will be For Love or Money, the Art and Antiques show, which begins its own series starting this Tuesday at 9.